Ever wonder what keeps, well, everything powered up? Today, we're diving into a career that's like the backbone of our electric world, electrical cable assemblers. And to map out this career path, we're plugging into the insights from, you guessed it, RoleCatcher.
And we're going beyond just, what the job title says. We're
Yeah.
really going to dig into how RoleCatcher actually helps you navigate this whole field.
Mm-hmm.
Like from that very first application you send to, get this, acing those interview questions that always make you sweat a little.
So I was checking out RoleCatcher's What They Do section, and honestly, I kind of pictured someone just like connecting wires all day, every day. But then they mentioned working on everything, and I mean everything, from those tiny little gadgets in your house to those massive machines you'd see in a factory.
It's true. And that really highlights what makes this job so cool. You need that like meticulous attention to detail of an electrician, making sure every connection is, safe and actually works. But you're also working within like the bigger picture of a production line. So you're assembling these components for these huge complex systems.
Okay, that makes way more sense. It's like the difference between wiring a lamp in your living room versus making sure every single circuit's lined up perfectly on a whole factory floor. Speaking of factories, RoleCatcher mentions the work environment, and it's not all just assembly lines, is it?
Nope, definitely not. Factories are a big part of it, sure. But you could find yourself working on construction sites, offices, even hospitals, basically anywhere that needs these like intricate electrical systems. Now, the variety is awesome, but RoleCatcher does mention the physical side too. It's not a desk job, that's for sure.
No.
You're on your feet. Someone's got to get into awkward positions. It's something to think about.
Oh, for sure, especially since they keep talking about steady job growth in this field. If you want something that's, going to stick around, this could be it.
Huh.
But how do you even break in? RoleCatcher's advice on getting started seems very specific.
Yeah, and that's good. They don't just give you the generic go get an internship spiel. They actually recommend looking for internships in both electrical A&D manufacturing settings. Remember that blend we were talking about? Yeah. This is where it gets like super relevant. An internship in a factory, that could teach you about being efficient, about quality control, all that good stuff, but one with an electrician. That's going to hone your actual wiring skills, teach you about safety protocols. It's all connected.
So it's like they're saying, don't just learn the how-to, understand the why behind every single connection.
Exactly.
But even with all the right experience, you've got to show it off. And RoleCatcher, they don't disappoint there. Their tips on showcasing your capabilities are surprisingly like hands-on.
For sure. They go way beyond just saying, make a good resume.
Yeah.
They actually talk about documenting your work. Like, imagine taking pictures of your projects or sketching out diagrams that show you get how these systems work,
So it's like a portfolio, but instead of paintings, it's beautifully soldered connections and like perfectly organized wiring harnesses.
Exactly. You're showing off your skills and your attention to detail. And that kind of leads us to, tailoring all that for your resume and actually prepping for the interview. And that's really where RoleCatcher shines as a platform.
It's like they built this whole toolkit just for people trying to land a job like this.
Totally. And it's not just about, making your resume look all fancy. They actually walk you through every single step, even like how to prep for an interview, which can be scary.
Speaking of interviews, RoleCatcher gives you 10 sample questions, and some of them are like really interesting, makes you think.
Oh, I'm all about a good interview question.
Yeah.
What do they hit you with?
Okay, so this one really stuck out to me. How do you like actually troubleshoot cable assembly problems? Sounds kind of basic, right? But think about it. You're dealing with electrical systems. Maybe there's a deadline and boom, something's not working. You can't just freak out. You got to think on your feet.
It's so true. That's a perfect example of how an interview question isn't just about, knowing the technical stuff. It's about problem solving, thinking critically, and then explaining it all clearly. What other curveballs did they throw your way?
All right, this one feels super relevant. How do you make sure, like absolutely sure, that the cables are assembled to the customer's exact specifications? Because every project's going to be different, right? I mean, the voltage, the thickness of the wires, even how you bundle the cables together, it all changes.
They're getting at something super important there.
Yeah.
It's not just about connecting the wires the right way. You have to get what the project needs and then make sure your work actually meets those standards. And RoleCatcher, they really hammer that home in their guide, that need for precision, for sweating the small stuff.
It's like being an electrical detective. You got to study the plans, figure out what the customer wants, and then use your skills to make it all come together perfectly. But even with all that, there's something else to think about: safety.
100%. And RoleCatcher doesn't sugarcoat it either. They even list potential for injuries as a downside of the job, which, makes sense.
Yeah, you're working with live wires, tools that could be sharp, sometimes even heavy equipment. It's not for the easily spooked.
Exactly. You got to know the risks, and you got to follow those safety rules, like, religiously.
Hmm.
Actually, a question like, how do you make sure you're assembling cables safely, is a total gift in an interview. That's your chance to show off that you get it.
That's such a good point. It's like you're not just good at your job, you're responsible, you care about safety. And that's huge anywhere, but especially when you're messing with electricity.
Exactly. And that focus on safety actually connects to something else RoleCatcher talks about, industry trends.
Oh, right. They have a whole section on that. What kind of trends are we talking? Like new types of wires, soldering irons that work faster.
Those are definitely a part of it, but it's bigger than that. Think about things like automation, robots, all that. It's changing how everything's made. And yeah, that includes cable assembly.
So are robots going to be taking our wiring jobs anytime soon? Because that's a little scary, to be honest.
It's on a lot of people's minds, and for good reason.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Yeah, automation's changing how things work, but some things about cable assembly still need that human touch.
Hmm.
You can't just program a robot to do it.
Okay, like what? Give me some hope here.
Think about it. Robots. They're great at doing the same thing over and over, soldering perfectly, maybe even following instructions to make one specific type of cable. But what happens when something unexpected pops up? A part's messed up, the design changes at the last minute, or you just have to figure out some crazy wiring problem out in the field. You need to be able to adapt, solve problems, really get how electricity works. That's hard to program into a machine.
That does make me feel better. It's not just connect the dots. It's about seeing the whole picture.
Exactly. And that's where always learning new stuff comes in. RoleCatcher's career stages section really digs into this. They show you how, as an electrical cable assembler, you could become a senior assembler, a quality control technician, even move into stuff like electrical equipment assembly. There are options.
It's like a choose your own adventure, but for your career.
Totally. And to unlock those paths, you got to keep learning, stay on top of what's new in the field, and be ready to adapt as things change.
So it's less about like competing with the robots and more about figuring out how to work with them. Right?
Exactly. It's a team effort. And the cool thing is, RoleCatcher doesn't just tell you that they actually give you tools to help you keep up.
Okay, like what, besides all the career guides and the interview practice, what else is in their bag of tricks?
Well, remember when we talked about their job board? It's not just a boring list. They have this thing called RoleCatcher.capture. It lets you save job postings from any website, which is super handy.
Oh, that's smart. So you don't have to have a million tabs open trying to remember where you saw that perfect job.
Exactly. You just bring it all into RoleCatcher. And here's the best part. Their system actually looks at your skills and your experience, then compares it to the jobs you saved. It's like personalized job matching.
Whoa, that's seriously cool. No more wondering if you're a good fit or changing your resume a million times. It takes out so much of the guesswork.
Totally. You can focus your energy where it matters. But even with all this tech, there's one thing RoleCatcher doesn't. Forget the human side of things.
You mean like networking? I thought that was kind of going out of style with everything being online now.
Actually, it's the opposite. When everything's about algorithms, connecting with people matters even more. And guess what? RoleCatcher has something for that too.
No way. They really thought of everything.
Seems like it. They have this built-in system where you can put in all your contacts, organize them, even keep track of your conversations. It's like a CRM, but for your career.
So you can remember who you talked to at that conference or follow up with someone from LinkedIn without like digging through old emails.
Exactly. It keeps it all organized so you're ready when an opportunity pops up.
It's crazy how much they've got in there. But with all this talk about automation, AI, optimizing for someone thinking about being an electrical cable assembler, is this like even a good career to get into? Are we all going to be replaced by robots?
The million-dollar question, right. And I think RoleCatcher gives a really interesting perspective. They're not pretending technology doesn't matter. They're giving you the tools to thrive alongside it.
So it's not human or machine, it's about how they work together, right?
Exactly. And that's a really powerful way to look at it. You're not scared of being replaced. You're learning how to be irreplaceable in a world that's always changing.
I like that. It's about adapting, always learning, and finding those places where, like, human skills still make a difference. And on that note, it looks like we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of electrical cable assemblers.
And what a dive it's been. We covered what the job is really like, the good and the bad, and most importantly, how RoleCatcher gives you this roadmap to navigate it all.
So, for anyone listening who's feeling that little spark, that curiosity, check out RoleCatcher. You might be amazed at what you find and the doors it could open.
And hey, maybe next time we do a deep dive like this, we'll be featuring your success story.